But you know what? The Bosa thing is overshadowing what's really important. What's really important for the 49ers this Sunday is figuring out who's playing quarterback. Should Brock Purdy play?
We're in reruns?
We're in reruns.
8 years in, we're in
8 years. It's the Shanahan way. 7 years in, we still don't know who the guy is. We think it's Brock Purdy. But think again, we got Kyle Shanahan as head coach. You never know who it is. You don't think Kyle Shanahan is looking at Kirk Cousins right now thinking, boy, that's what I could have had right now.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm uncomfortable. Again, I'm not him, and I'm not pretending to be some football player. Seeing what happened with Tua Tagovailoa last year, I'd be very uncomfortable playing Brock Purdy in such a short period. I don't care what the degree of the concussion is.
A lot of people would.
If you care about the young man and his health long term, man, we talk so much about safety and this.
You know what, though?
Gosh.
You know what, though?
There's no guarantee it doesn't happen 5 weeks from now. Like, I get all that. Knowing what we know.
But Shanahan, and there's some fans out there who believe if he's cleared, he's ready to go.
No, I understand
go play ball. And if you're Brock Purdy, you're probably thinking, I need to play.
I understand
because
that.
Because I got somebody behind me who wants to take my job. That's how I got my job, through injury.
You're right.
So, anyway, let's get to James Rapien. James Rapien has done a great job covering the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know when we started following each other, but all of a sudden I see all this Bengals content. I'm like, man, this guy's pretty good. I need to get him on the show. Well, the Niners playing the Bengals on Sunday. Bengals are rolling, and James Rapien, I believe, is going to come to the Bay Area. He's one of the most plugged-in names when it comes to Bengals football. James, good morning, man. Welcome to the Morning Roast. Joe Shasky, the Butcher, Bonte Hill, here on the West Coast on 95.7 The Game. How you doing this morning?
Oh, well, thanks for having me. You know it. I'll be in the Bay this weekend, no doubt.
Can I ask you right off the rip, we all believe Joe Burrow is a franchise quarterback, okay? If he suffered the same kind of concussion that Brock Purdy suffered this week, what would the sense from you as someone who's, part of the team essentially here, what would you want Burrow to play on such short rest, or would that not cross your mind if he was medically cleared?
I think it certainly crosses your mind. We dealt with it. It's completely different, obviously, with the calf, but long-term versus short-term and what he means to the franchise. That was a big debate as he was dealing with that and the ramifications that can come from it. So concussion, it's a head injury. Obviously, it's much, much different. And yet I think Burrow, I think the Bengals, it would be the same. If he's cleared, he'd be ready to go and want to go, and they would play him. At the same time, I do think that there would be some saying, short week.
Right.
Is it worth it? It's probably not worth it. So especially because the 49ers are 5-2. They're not 3-3 like the Bengals trying to claw their way back.
And James, you make a great point because I was following Jamar Chase saying, hey, sit Joe down for the first few weeks of the season. We need him later, not early on. And there was a big debate, and he didn't look right. Hell, even on that Monday night game against the LA Rams, he didn't move out the pocket. It was a great game plan by Zach Taylor, but he stood there, got the ball out quick. Now where is he at with his calf? Is Joe Burrow as healthy as he was coming into training camp this season, James?
I don't think he's there. I'm not sure he'll be there the rest of the way. He was. It's funny, guys. My big takeaway the first day of camp was, oh man, Joe Burrow looks better than I've ever seen him, and just the way he was throwing, the way he was moving, and then that second day, halfway through practice, he suffers the injury, and he looked great up until that point too. So I was like, man, it's wild to think that he might have been on pace and been able to do everything that we expected him to do, at least in Cincinnati, which was like be an MVP front runner or be in that conversation. He's just not going to be there now. That said, I do think he's the healthiest he's been since the injury and moving around more in practice. And he's not wearing a sleeve on that calf, and he looks more confident. And so we'll see. It's going to be quite the test on Sunday against that defensive front. If he can move, he's going to have to be able to move if the Bengals are going to operate the way they normally do on offense.
Yeah, and I think most people who are football fans are playing fantasy, and they're like, oh, my God, Jamar Chase. Oh, my God. We watched on Monday night this guy Addison, who's a rookie, just absolutely light up the 49ers, and we're all obviously seeing that Jamar Chase just had a great game after saying he's open all the time. Okay, that's the matchup. How are they going to stop this guy? Because this guy feels like a dynamic playmaker. I'm very worried about Jamar Chase. Give us all the Jamar Chase thoughts that you got for this team.
He's such a weapon. I mean, he's as versatile as any receiver in the league. You can play him anywhere, and I think some compare him to Debo a bit. And I don't think he's as physical of a runner from a running backfield standpoint. But I think after the catch, it's very similar, where he can turn a 7-yard gain, make two defenders miss or break a tackle or two and turn it into a huge play. So they're going to line him up all over. Obviously, the 49ers are going to cloud him and double cover him and do everything they can to take him away. And so I think the storyline, of course, is Jamar Chase and how the 49ers stop him. At the same time, the Bengals need someone not named Jamar Chase to show up. And whether it's T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, someone else, they're going to need production from one of their other top skill players for sure.
James Rapien here on from Bengals Locked On. He's tapped in when it comes to Cincinnati Bengals football. We're going behind enemy lines as we get ready for a huge Week 8 matchup between the Bengals and the 49ers. Of course, the Niners on a 2-game losing streak hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, who are Super Bowl contenders. No doubt about it. They lost the AFC Championship last year. They're starting to get on a roll here at 3-3. But this offensive line, you brought up the Niners defensive line. I don't know if you've been aware, James. We've been ripping the defensive line. They have not gotten the job done whatsoever. Can they start to figure it out against this Bengals front? I know you guys went out there and signed Orlando Brown Jr. Where's this offensive line at? Where are they at in terms of protecting Joe Burrow and giving up sacks?
Yeah, I know there's some heat on the 49ers D-line. I think that there's still some pressure on this Bengals offensive line to show up because of the past 2 weeks. And knowing that the 49ers defensive line can be contained a little bit like the Vikings did, certainly like the Browns did. I think this Bengals offensive front, they're better pass protection wise than they've been in recent years. Orlando Brown Jr. is a big part of that. Obviously that will get tested again, but part of their struggles, if you want to look at them as struggles, has been not knowing what Burrow is going to give them on the move. And so it's really hard to pass judgment on the offense as a whole because we haven't seen it whole, even though Burrow's played all 6 games. So I think it is going to be interesting to see how they look against a good defensive front, even though there is some criticism right now and probably fair criticism. At the same time, their biggest issue has been run blocking and opening up holes for Joe Mixon and struggling in short yardage situations. It's not like Burrow's been hurt and playing through it and they can lean on the run game. That wasn't the case. He threw it 49 times on that Monday night game, like you mentioned, which I was shocked about, but I get it. So we'll see. But yeah, this offensive front, I think they're better than they've been in recent years, but they're hoping to be much improved following the bye week.
No one ever talks about your guys' defense.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so slept on, and yet they always seem to be like a bend, don't break type of a defense. Give Niner fans a preview of what are your strengths and weaknesses as a defense, because, like I said, most people have no idea what the Bengals defense can do to this 49er offense.
They've had some transition on the back end. Jesse Bates signing with the Falcons, Von Bell signing with the Panthers in the offseason. So they have 2 new starting safeties. Dax Hill is going to lead the way in that safety room. We'll see him on George Kittle maybe a decent amount on Sunday. But they'll rotate, of course. Kittle crushed the Bengals in 2021, the last time these 2 teams played. So we'll see. But the biggest weakness, I would say, for this defense thus far has been giving up big plays and tackling issues. And so 2 things that they've gotten better at recently over the past couple of games, but we'll see if they can continue that against a Shanahan-style offense. And the element that they really bring to the table, I agree with you. They don't panic. The bend, not break is a great way to describe it. Their last game against Seattle, they gave up some big plays and came up with multiple red zone goal line stops with the game on the line. Yep. There's no Nick Bosa on this defensive front, but they're really solid front 7-wise. And led by Trey Hendrickson, but DJ Reader, Sam Hubbard. There's a bunch of guys that 49ers fans should know and be aware of, certainly.
No, B.J. Hill's solid in the middle, number 92. Yep. Logan Wilson is linebacker, number 55. He just makes plays every time I see him. And this D coordinator you guys have, I thought he'd get a head coaching job. Lou Anarumo, I thought he'd get a head coaching job by now. He hasn't. He's still in Cincinnati. So is this defensive line one of the most underrated D-lines? Because you're right. Since Seattle was getting into the red zone, 4 sacks on Geno Smith, that he was under constant pressure, James.
Yeah. They found a way to get pressure on him, and it's credit across the board because it's not like they were all clear wins from one defensive lineman. It was multiple guys. B.J. Hill got the game clinching stop essentially the secondary made multiple big plays. They were good in coverage to give Trey Hendrickson time or give Sam Hubbard time to get pressure. So it is very much a collective effort, and it does start with Lou Anarumo. And he just usually finds a way to figure out the opposing offense, whether it's Andy Reid's offense in matchups against the Chiefs or any of these other offenses. And that's what I think is probably the biggest storyline I'll be watching on Sunday, Kyle Shanahan versus Lou Anarumo. That's going to be a heck of a chess match. And just because one gets the upper hand early doesn't mean it's going to continue that way, because they both are obviously great coaches. So I'm excited to see that coaching matchup for sure.
Real quick, how do you see this game playing out? What's your prediction?
Does Brock Purdy play? If so, I'm rolling with the 49ers by 3. If not, I think Darnold makes one more mistake than Purdy would make, and the Bengals win in a one-possession game. I think it'll be tight.
I like that.
And I think because some of the conversation in Cincinnati has been how big of a difference is it from Purdy to Darnold? And I think there are some differences, not many. The 49ers offense could still be functional, but I think Darnold would make one more mistake than Purdy would make if Purdy starts.
Interesting stuff there. James Rapien, Bengals Locked On Network, does a great job. Bengals podcast will be Locked On Bengals podcast. He's tapped into Bengals football. I've been following him for a long time, man. He's good at what he does. Have a safe flight out here to the Bay Area. Hopefully we run into each other. We sit in the sections. We sit with the fans. We don't go to the press box, James, so we may miss you. But enjoy your stay in the Bay Area, man. Keep up the good work. Thanks for the time today.
Of course. Yeah, thanks for having me. And just know, fellas, I'm rooting for Steph to drop 60 tonight.
Let's go.
Wow,
let's go. Where are you from, James? Are you from Cincinnati? Real quick, are you from Cincy?
I am, but I'm a huge NBA fan, and I might be one of the only Steph Curry supporters in Ohio.
Really?
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, certainly. Hey, I was rooting for them against the Cavs every single year they played. So.
Well, let me give you a little ammunition for Ohio. I have a little thing. The most under-talked about by the media, obvious thing that's ever happened in the history of sports. LeBron James has been on HGH for 25 years. And he cycled off. He lost about 30 pounds. He was blood doping or whatever the hell he was doing. Like he was a bicyclist this year. I'm telling you, it is so – the guy's forehead – we talk about Bonds. We had no problem talking about Bonds. LeBron has clearly been on. That's the ammunition.
Rich Paul's listening. We don't need to get sued. James, get out of here, man.
I'm not a Cavs hater either, by the way. I just really like Steph. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Glad you agree with me.
Anytime. James Rapien here on the Morning